With Valve dropping the biggest balance update ever for Deadlock, you might be wondering, is my build still good? Am I behind the meta? What are truly the best builds in the game? Spoilers, most of them are actually quite bad. In this video we're gonna go from A to Z and I'm gonna give you one build for every character, explain real quick how to play them and why it's the best build in the game. Let's get right into it. We're gonna start with Abrams. Abrams, quite nerfed this patch, but the builds really didn't change much. He's still a gun character that does a lot of melee damage and he still wants to be really tanky, and here I recommend Together's build. Together is one of the best Abrams players on the ladder, and this build really hasn't changed much, if at all. You can run a bit more spirit, but like the base of the build is still the same. You run early gun items into early greens to get your green power spike, and then you're gonna go point blank, melee charge, the two like core items for Abrams right now, and then you pivot into Spirit later on to get your Spirit spike, and then you follow it up with a Phantom Strike, Hunter's Aura, which Hunter's Aura actually got buffed in this patch. It's better in team fights than before, and late game we can even transition into something like weighted shots, because a new weighted shot is actually way stronger than it used to be. So for Abrams, Together DL. By the way, if you're watching, all the build IDs will be linked in the comment below if you want to find them. Next up, Apollo, and here I'm going to recommend Metro Nuke Apollo. This build I've been working on for basically the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and this is really the final version, and I think Apollo is still insane in the current meta, by the way. What really makes this build stand out, this is very standard, right? We get the 4.8k Spirit Spike early to get our damage, and then we go straight into Resto Locket. Resto Locket got buffed. This item is absolutely crazy on Apollo, because Apollo will always have max stacks on this item, basically, because he is in so close. And the beauty about this build is you might look at the items and think, wait, there's not a lot of resists, but even just buying everything we have here in the mid game brings us to 34% spirit resist on base. Plus, we're using Radiant Regen. This item got hard buffed, and Apollo is one of the best Radiant Regen users. And at this point, we really don't die anymore unless the enemy has, you know, gun or melee damage, and then we end up buying Bullet Resilience or Metal Skin down the line. Next up, Bebop, and here I recommend Taz. Taz is like the best Bebop player in the game. If you haven't seen him play the character, it's absolutely crazy. And the way Bebop is being played right now in the current meta is kind of hybridy. You go early Spirit Spike to do damage, slowing Hex is insane, and then you go tanky. And later down the line, you can decide if you want to go more tank, survivability, or more into your gun/laser. Because Bebop's gun is actually quite deadly. In the current meta, everything is Spirit Nuke still for most of the game, so having a gun character stand out and do gun damage really kind of fucks with the enemy comp, and then they have to worry about buying both Bullet and Spirit Resist, right? So this is why this build works so well. It's a hybrid build, but it pivots into gun/disarm silence later on, and it's really good. Next up, Billy, and here I recommend Metro Goat Billy. Billy got quite a few changes in the last patch. His one got changed in the sense of, if you max it now, you have more charges, plus melee items, especially melee charge, work with the maxed out 1, which it didn't used to before. It didn't apply the bonus damage. So melee charge is actually a really good item on Billy now. We're not buying this item to heavy melee and get parried. We're buying this item because we're still gonna go for the normal route where we're gonna get 2 points in blasted and then max bash down. And once we have bash down max, it lines up beautifully to where we get melee charge. And melee charge, again, is gonna up our damage massively. And then the rest of the build is very close to what you've seen on Billy before. 2 new items that I added are Stalker and Opening Rounds. Stalker is like basically a core item for Billy now because it's so easy to proc and you want to be close range on Billy. And Opening Rounds is really overstated. Billy does benefit from the damage it does. Opening Rounds also works on Bashdown, by the way, also got fixed this patch. And Spirit Power, you know, the 10 Spirit Power extra is just going to make his abilities a lot stronger. So, Metro Goat Billy. Next up, Calico, and for Calico, I'll recommend ABL's build. This is really, I think, the best way to play Calico. She has an insane amount of damage in lane or early on, and every build should be maxing the 2 or getting 2 points in too early because you're just getting bonus gold on every single kill. That's why most of the Calicos in your game look so rich, right? So if your build doesn't have 2 points in 2, you're throwing, okay? Make sure this is like the most important thing about the build, literally getting 2 points in 2. But yeah, the build itself is pretty standard. Life Strike does help you stay alive. It did get nerfed a bit, but like, you know, it helps Calico, and Calico is more of like a tank than before, I want to say, because the ultimate also gives you healing now on instead of damage amp on max level. So it's a hybrid build, and then it pivots more into the classic gun/disable style you've seen before. Silence Wave got buffed, it is crazy on Calico. You come in, you silence wave them, you use your full combo, they're dead, and if they're not dead, they can't even fight back because they're silenced. Next up, Celeste, and here I recommend a generic shitboys actual Celeste build. This is a pretty solid build overall. There is really everything you need on Celeste in here, makes the build really solid. If you want, you can pivot more into gun, but high velocity rounds, no brainer, early spirit spike, and then we're getting into the classic stamina mastery, greater expansion, and this is really a hybrid build where you max your 1 first to do max damage, max your 2, and then you get some points in the 3. And the one downside of this build is it does ignore the ult. So if you're looking for an ult build, this is probably not it, but this is, in my opinion, really the best way to play Celeste. You're lethal at any point in the game, and even if you don't put points into the ult, it will do a lot of damage in fights. Next up, Doorman, and here I have to recommend my friend Piggy. Piggy has been grinding Doorman even when the character was not popular, and if you've played Doorman or against Doorman in the last patch, you know how absolutely broken he is right now. And the main thing that makes him broken is the new Call Bell. Call Bell does ridiculous damage in lane, especially once you get it to level 2, because the damage goes up a massive amount, and once you max it, you one-shot people with the Call Bell, and the entire early game build is literally built around that idea, right? We're getting opening rounds early. It's actually a really good item in lane, because Doorman's gun on base actually is good for harassment, right? So we shoot our gun, plus we get free spirit, and then we go into the classic mystic expansion on door, plus rapid recharge. Which means now we can spam 10 million call bells that all do a million damage, plus, you know, we can abuse the Doorman shenanigans, like running urns, you know, dashing enemies or putting enemies into our walker, stealing mid-boss, you know, or cheesing enemies into a walker, etc, etc. Piggy's Doorman. Piggy is like probably the best Doorman player to watch right now, and this build is just really, really solid. If you are struggling with this, there's a lot of choices, but it's very easy to follow. You follow early lane, and then you go core, and again, he buys most of these items almost every game, and then you just adjust accordingly. Drifter, and here I also recommend ABLs. ABL has been like one of the best drifters on the ladder for a long time, and he just updated this build. Drifter is played differently now. So the way it works is you get 2 points in Rend, and then you get 2 points in Blood Scent, and then 2 points in Ult, and then you max the Stalker's Mark. And this might seem really random, but Stalker's Mark got a change to where it does a lot more bleed damage now on max level. So you want to build more Spirit on Drifter, and you want to get a few more points in Blood Scent, because Blood Scent is going to be active more often, because they also reworked Eternal Night to where the people that are blinded in Eternal Night will always be affected by Blood Scent. So as you notice, this build has a lot of Spirit. And Arcane Surge here is a really interesting choice because it actually does work with every single ability, okay? So you can use Arcane Surge to extend your Vent range to do more damage with Vent. You can, the most common scenario if you don't have ult is setting it up with Stalker's Mark, so Arcane Surging, and then your Stalker's Mark is going to do more damage and last for longer, okay? So it's an insane amount of bleed damage. Plus, before every ult, you just jump dash and your Eternal Light lasts longer and is stronger. Fortitude is crazy on this character because he already has a ridiculous amount of movement speed, and now with the max ult, if you cast it with Fortitude, you're literally running at Mach 5, you don't need any other movement items, yeah. Thank you, Yoshi, balanced character. And then yeah, Toxic Bullets, and then Focus Lens. Focus Lens is back, and I've seen this bot more, especially on Drifter, and the reason is, people don't buy Dispel Magic as much anymore, and that's really the only counter to Focus Lens you have, right? If you don't remove Focus Lens, this item does an insane amount of damage, and obviously silences, right? So it's an insane pick-off tool, and it works really well on Drifter. Dynamo, and here I recommend a Hydrations build. This is a hybrid build that can pivot into support, but it really is based around the idea that you will do a lot of damage yourself as well. The early game is a bit interesting where he doesn't get a 4.8k Spirit Spike super early, but he gets a really early Recharging Rush and then Headhunter. And then after, he gets Rapid Recharge. And what happens at this point is, once you have your 1 maxed, you have some of the highest burst damage in the game, and you have a really insane combo where you uppercut them, right? And then you headshot, you proc your headshot booster, and then you have another uppercut, right? And then you have another uppercut, whatever it's called, kinetic pulse, because Recharging Rush procs really, really easily in combination with Headhunter. It is more of a carry focused build, And then later on, there's more power into especially the kinetic pulse. You can, if you want to, buy support items on this build and just like sneak in a healing nova or a rescue beam, right? But you're gonna do a lot of things yourself in this build, and you're gonna support your team by healing / killing the enemy. And if you kill the enemy, you know, you don't have to heal your teammates. Next up, Graves. And Graves, here I recommend Saya. This build really, and most Graves builds sadly, have really not changed much in the last few weeks. People have been lazy with the builds, but this is probably still the way to play Graves. She didn't get changed much in the latest patch. You go for an early extra stamina so you can actually move around a bit faster than snail speed, resto shot, and then an early slowing bullets. This proc's insanely easy, and it is a hybrid that is early on focused on spirit. Okay, so early on we're maxing Jar of Dead, but the later the game goes, the more damage you're gonna do with your gun. We're going into Toxic Bullet, Stamina Mastery, and then we're gonna go more into gun items. Inhibitor, Ricochet, right, late game. If you've played Graves, you know what's up at that point. Saya Graves, insane build. Next up, Great Talon, and here I recommend Viscous' build. This build really hasn't changed much at all. Talon didn't really get changes this patch, and the way to play Talon is still basically the same, plus Recharging Rush is now added to the build, because this item, as people are realizing more and more, this is one of the strongest items in the game right now. It really was undervalued when it first came out, but then people realized, wait, it's just another charge. So this item really is just another like 300 to 400 damage on Talon, right? We're getting the Spirit Spike early, plus we're getting cooldown for the Owl, and then rapid recharge, and at that point our arrows will do 400, 500 damage, and then, you know, you get an extra arrow, and you slow them with long range, so your gun does a bit, and hybrid is really a way to go on this character. So yeah, Viscous' Talon, probably best Talon in the game. Haze, and here I will also recommend ABL's. ABL has been hard at work since the patch. He's really innovated on a lot of the builds for the characters, and Haze got changed to where she's more of a carry style character now. Her ult is stronger and she wants to stay in the fights longer, and she's less about bursting people down fast, okay? So this build does go more into gun, especially early, to win the lane. We're still running the classic combo slowing hex, Surge of Power, if you know, you know. Sleep Dart, right? Slowing hex and then ultimate. And we're still using Fortitude to roam around really fast. This item, by the way, is back in the meta for sure. Like, the meta right now is perma team fighting, so having an item like Fortitude that just allows you to stay on the map and not having to go into base is really valuable. It's a lot stronger than it was before. We're going down to a more carry focused build, Blood Tribute, Ricochet, and then Siphon Bullets. Siphon Bullets is actually back on the menu for characters like Haze, because this item got changed to where it now always steals the max HP percentage. So if you're shooting tanky targets, you're getting a lot more value than before out of Siphon Bullets. Holliday, and here I recommend OC's build. Pretty classic stuff if you play Holliday. We're maxing barrel first and we're getting rapid recharge just so we have a million bounce pads and a million powder kegs, right? And then we're actually going more into spirit and getting slowing hex so we can catch people, make it for easy setups with like lasso, etc. And then, you know, the classic Stamina Mastery and Resto Locket again. Holliday, great character to use Resto Locket on because she's usually in. She will get a lot of value out of the item. And then, again, Recharging Rush, right? Item is bought by a lot of characters and it's really strong, and it's going to show up a few more times in these builds. Otherwise, it's a pretty normal build, and later down the line, you go more into spirit. The gun portion of Holliday is still not the greatest, right? You're an initiator catch and then you throw your barrels and do a lot of damage. Next up, Infernus, and here I recommend Renon's Eternus Infernus. I've played this build myself the last few days and it is really strong. I wanted to do my own Infernus build and then I realized this is probably just the perfect build for Infernus. It is just the best. So what he does is he gets 1 point in burn early in the lane to win the lane, and that's why we're going early improved spirit and a rapid round / extended magazine. You're gonna do a lot of damage and apply the burn really easily. And then he gets 2 points in Flame Dash, just because the DPS on Flame Dash on level 2 is actually quite good now, plus cooldown reduction early, so we can use this more often. And then we're just gonna max after burn, okay? And at that point, it is the normal Infernus build with duration extended, toxic bullet, superior duration. And I just want to show this off. At 12k, 13k, the burn damage you do is absolutely ridiculous. It gets online really early. Infernus is not a hard carry anymore. You really, once you have this going, you really just want to go around and burn people and kill them. And all you have to do is puke at them, right? Burn them, and then they're usually dead, because this burn lasts for like literally the entire week since the patch has been out. I'm still burning. Spiritual Overflow, a lot better on Infernus, because ability duration is now in that item, so even longer burns if you want, or more burns. Ivy, and here I have to recommend 2 builds. And this is the first character in the game where I will recommend 2 builds. Ivy is actually really strong, but there's 2 distinct playstyles on her right now. One is a hard carry route, where you max Katsu Connection first, just to get that permanent buff, so it stays active forever. And for this build, I recommend Wonders Tempo Ivy. This is a gun build. You don't have to run Golden Cusack if you want to be greedy, buy it, right? But it is a very classic carry Ivy build that also uses Restore Locket and the classics, you know, Tesla, Siphon Bullets is back, and this used to be like the normal like Ivy carry playstyle. You can upgrade if you need something at any time, but later down the line, at this point, you actually do a ridiculous amount of damage. The cool thing about this build is it maxes Katsu Connection first, and then it gets 3 points in Entangling Thorns, and you will be able to keep up Spellslinger like basically forever with this build, because the cooldowns are going to be really low. So you're going to be running around at Mach 5, right? And you're going to reload at Mach 5. The one issue Ivy has is that the reload is pretty long. You're going to reload very fast, and you're going to do a ridiculous amount of damage. Now, the other way to play Ivy right now, I'm going to shout out Deathy's Division Edit. This is a very support-focused build, and it goes the complete opposite. In fact, it ignores Katsu Connection completely until the late game, and it gets value points early in Katsu, in Entangling Thorns, then 2 points in Stone Form to lower the cooldown so you can stay alive forever, and then we're maxing Thorns first. And this is also a really valid playstyle, because the new Thorns, if enemies stay in it for too long, they will get rooted, right? And then they can't move. This is more of a support build, but it will still do a ridiculous amount of damage, and you can catch people with it, okay? The early game looks pretty similar, but we're going for early healing Nova. We're gonna go for Vortex Web, and the combo really is here. You throw down your Katsu, right? If you have ult, you ult. You pull them into your Entangling Thorns, they all get rooted, and your team can just eat them up alive. Kelvin. So, here I'm gonna shout out Division. Kelvin got changed a lot, got buffed a lot. Nade build is now the way to go, okay? You're playing Kelvin as a support. Nades on max level do a ridiculous amount of damage and a ridiculous amount of healing, so it is absolutely a no-brainer to just go for rapid recharge and improved spirit, because the spirit scaling on this ability is also crazy. So you're gonna do ridiculous amount of damage and healing early on in lane, and then you're gonna go the support route. You're gonna run Guardian Ward. Everything after is just to make your nade, everything you do stronger, right? Like a bigger Ice Beam with greater expansion, bigger AoE radius on Frost Grenades, a bigger Frozen Shelter to trap more enemies or catch more teammates. It's a support build, but you will do a lot of damage yourself, and you don't even need the situational like healing items. You don't need to buy Rescue Beam. You can if you want to, but you're gonna heal a ridiculous amount no matter what, right? Like, so this build, you can be a carry and a support at the same time. Division, good job. Geist, and here I recommend Deuce. Geist build really haven't changed much, but Geist by herself got a lot better, because they keep on buffing Radiant Regen, and this has been the core item for Geist for months now. And every time they buff Radiant Regen, and every time they adjust Geist and make her ability stronger, she becomes stronger. This is a pretty standard build. It really hasn't changed much over the last few months. There is really no changes in terms of items, more counterspell or more counterspell usage on average, but otherwise it's a very normal Geist build, but it does its job. You don't need to change it up. The cool thing here about this build, or the one unique thing about this build, is the extra charge, because it just is worth it for the life drain. The new life drain is actually crazy, and with extra charge you can fight multiple people at the same time with this and deal a really insane amount of damage while getting a lot of healing, right? And you're still gonna use a gun and do a lot of gun damage. Next up, Lash, and here I recommend Deathy's Full Spirit Lash. Same story for Lash, not much has changed in terms of his itemization. It's the classics, Mystic Burst, Quicksilver Reload on the Flog, and Improved Spirit, and then Headhunter, right? Mystic Shot, we all, or you Lash players know this, hasn't changed much, but this is just the most solid all-around build. I like the distribution, I like the early Spirit Spike, and then the Green Spike later down the line. McGinnis. I was wrong about this character. I put her low in my tier list, and today I have been terrorized by this character. The new ultimate is ridiculous. It does way too much damage. So this build is gonna abuse that. This is an ult / full spirit tank build. Okay, the only orange item we'll ever buy is monster rounds to help in lane. And then everything we're gonna do is gonna revolve around keeping our turrets up, making our turrets better, and having ult as often as possible. And the build gets 2 points in turrets just to make them, you know, more annoying, put out more, and then we're maxing ult right away. And at that point, your job is done. At that point, you will kill everyone, and everything that you see here in the mid game / late game is just to make your turrets and your ult stronger. You don't need to shoot your gun. You put down turrets, and every time you have ult, you press ult, and enemies disappear in a millisecond, okay? And, you know, Lightning Skull is just, you know, the cherry on top. Crazy character. Play her full spirit right now, 100%. Focus on the ultimate, and yeah, it's a day and night difference compared to old McGinnis. Next up, Mina. Character hasn't changed much. Cosmetical updated the build a tiny bit. It is kind of still the same thing. He likes early spirit sap now. This item again has seen more play in the last few weeks. Shred is becoming more valuable because everyone is running spirit resist because the meta is so spirit focused. So having early spirit sap is really going to help you secure those early kills that Mina needs. She did get nerfed a bit in the patch, right? So it's a bit harder to get those kills. So early spirit spike into toxic bullets, and then into the classic dispel magic so you don't die, and stamina mastery so you don't die. And then everything we do later is just gonna up our spirit damage and up our survivability. Cosmetical, the best Mina in the game, by the way. For Mirage, I'm recommending OCs, and unlike Mina, this build has changed a lot, okay? Mirage has seen a lot of changes that really change how you build him. So, a few things. Tornado is now scaling really well on max level, plus you can recast it, okay? It actually does damage. Tornado does damage. It doesn't keep the enemy in the air as much anymore, but it does a lot of damage, and you can cast 2 of them. Plus, the scarabs on max level also have better scaling, okay? So raw spirit is a lot stronger on this character. And what this build does is, it still goes for the early Jinsmark max, as you can see, right? We're still doing the classic early spirit spike, but there's really no gun damage at all anymore. In fact, the only gun items he buys, and you should buy, is toxic bullets, because, you know, if you apply Jinsmark, you're also going to apply toxic, and active reload. Keep shooting without having to reload, because otherwise, notice, again, more shred. Usually people would run Quicksilver reload early, but people moved away from it because you need more damage early on, and Mirage really just wants to get to the late game. And after this gun spike comes the fun. I thought this was a meme until I played against it. This is crazy, okay? The second max is Tornado, and the build lines up beautifully to where if you buy Echo Shard, you buy it around the same time you have max Tornado. And at that point, at 23k, your Tornadoes, every single one of them does around 300 damage, okay? But you have 4 of them, okay? So it's like you Tornado, right? And then you Tornado again, and then you Tornado again, right? And then you Tornado again, and then everyone's dead, or you live. A, crazy for damage, but B, also crazy to escape. It's kind of like Mina on crack if you think about it, right? And Echo Shard has like useful stats in general, right? It also gives you fire rate, ability range, spirit resist, bullet resist. So same build, and it's still going Ricochet and then a Silencer later game. More spirit focused and more spirit items, because again, the scaling on all his spirit abilities is really, really good. Next up, Krill. Probably the best tank in the game right now, mostly because they nerfed all the other tanks. This guy, I hate him. He's annoying. This is Prenat build 3. I didn't name this. There's a Prenat Perplexity is a really good Krill player on the NA ladder, and it is a very classic standard Mo build. Other than the fact you're not running any kind of gun items, which I guess is kind of normal, right? But the classics do not skip Warpstone, right? Like if you get a grab, you get a kill. Didn't change much in terms of build, but feels a lot stronger to play. He just doesn't die, especially combo on level 1 gives you 100% lifesteal. You just heal for a ridiculous amount. Prenat build 3. Next up, Paige. And here I'm going to shout out Piggy. Again, Piggy, one of the best support players in the game. And his Paige build is probably the best in the game. This build has every single item you need. The classics that you buy, knockdown, standard, staple for Paige. And then there's a lot of cool options. Because you are a support, there's a lot of cool counter options and a lot of survivability options. You follow this build, you can't really go wrong with it. It has everything you need. Divine Barrier is crazy right now. Paige is still a really good character. Piggy's support Paige. Next up, Taz. Paradox and Tarz are basically the same thing. The guy is crazy on this character, and this is Tarz's build for the new update. And he still runs gun. Paradox still does really good gun damage. Early on in the lane, this is really strong harass. Headshot, booster plus Mystic Shot is gonna win you the lane, right? And then slowing bullets. You can hit your combos. If you're slowing bullets them, you can hit easier pulse grenades. Pulse grenade first, max, and then he goes into a Carabine point, 2 points in Paradoxical Swap, and then we max out Carabine. Still the same playstyle as before. Plays a bit different because all the abilities kind of got rerouted and changed. But yeah, this is probably the best build. It has a lot of utility, it has a lot of catch, slowing hex, just like on Holliday, to catch enemies, to initiate the fight, to hit an easy swap, right? Stamina mastery. And late game, Echo Shard. Actually really fucking cool idea. Pocket, and here I recommend Deuce. Same character as always. Again, people are running more cooldown reduction early for the early power spike, right? And Du is doing that too. And Du is actually maxing the ultimate first. This is probably the strongest ultimate in the game other than Black Hole and maybe Kelvin Ice Dome, because on max level it now prevents all healing, right? So if you hit this ultimate in a fight, you will most likely win the fight. If you hit 2 or more people, they will die, okay? Or they will have to run immediately, or they will die, which is gonna guarantee you the teamfight win. This build maxes ult first, gets compressed cooldown for ult, and otherwise it's very close to the normal pocket build. Still getting Swift Striker and Point Blank for the gun spike, so you do a bit of gun damage as well. But otherwise pretty normal. Just follow the build order here and you really can't go wrong. Piggies, support Rem again. If you want to play Rem as a gun carry, or like a nuke character, there's better options, okay? The best way to play Rem is supporting, is healing. You can still get a lot of value out of this character. You can still do a lot of damage. You have Torment Pulse, you have Cold Front with this, right? But it is focused around keeping your team alive. And there is, again, options, right? You can pivot into more damage if you feel like your team is not doing enough. But Rem is played as a support character, and this is the best build in the game for Rem. Next up, 7. And here I recommend Metro's Hyper Carry 7. Haven't updated it since the patch. Neither has anyone else. 7 is in a really bad spot right now, okay? Like, he is a very weak character. But in terms of numbers, like, he didn't get an ability that got any better, really, right? Like, the balls are about the same and they're still the best tool for farming. So we're maxing Lightning Ball first and we're getting early Rapid Recharge. This item is crazy on 7, by the way. If you're not running a Rapid Recharge on 7, you're throwing. Just having more balls with the cooldown is actually crazy on this character. And then ballistic enhancements, you just need a lot of money to get online. Then we're maxing 3, and once we have ult maxed, once we are at like 30-40k, we will kill everyone. The issue is before then we will be kind of useless, but no 7 build in the game that I've seen so far can like negate the fact that 7 is just kind of weak early and mid game. Next up, Shiv, and here I recommend Togethers. Again, best Shiv player in the game. And Shiv playstyle changed a lot, okay? His ultimate got a lot weaker, but his knives got a lot stronger. And every single Shiv player in the game that I've seen is maxing knife first, because this does a ridiculous amount of damage. And this build is also designed to where you will do a ridiculous amount of damage early. We're getting early Rapid Recharge and duration, both intended for the knives, plus Healbane, plus the classics, you know, Cold Front, extra Spirit. And then all we have to do is build more tanky. There is a few options to shut people down, like Silence Wave and a later Decay. But as you see, there's not a single gun item inside, because you're gonna go in and your main goal with this build really is to hit a few knives and then the enemy will die, okay? Shiv dash again is a bit weaker. Ult is a lot less reliable. You kill people with your knives, and this build is the best at doing it. Next up, Silver. And here I recommend Metro's Hyper Carry Silver. You buy Lightning Scroll in the lane and you basically won. All jokes aside, I also have to recommend Together. He's really been at the forefront of innovating on tank characters, and Silver is a tank. And this is the latest version of the build. Hunter's Aura again got better, right? Especially in team fights. Notice everyone is running Fortitude again. So early gun spike with Hunter's Aura makes it insanely easy to proc your ultimate, right? And then all we have to do is build tanky / movement speed, to where once we get into ult, right, we just chase people down. And weighted shots is an upgrade in the late game that actually allows us to do that really easily, because you can just build it out of slowing bullets. You're gonna up your damage even more. And Silver really still doesn't die in ultimate if you play it properly, and this build will allow you to get into ultimate really fast. Boop, boop, boop. Sinclair. Sinclair is a really strong character. Like, all the new characters in the game have really good ults to steal. And yet there's only like 5 Sinclair players on the ladder on high rank. And Raigeki is always the one like innovating / being at the forefront of the build. So again, as in last build update video, I have to recommend Raigeki's Sinclair. This build does get 2 points in Spectral Resistance, and then it maxes Vexing Bolt. Vexing Bolt does ridiculous amount of damage. The reason he only has 2 points in both Bunny and ult is he decides what to max first here, depending on what he's going against. If he's going against people that have really high value ults, he maxes ult second. If he feels like he has to support / mass debuff, he goes rapid. And if he feels like he has to carry more himself, he goes max spectral assistant. So this is a pretty big brain build, and this build offers like really everything that you need in that scenario. Next up, Venator, and here I have to shout out 2 builds. Build number 1 is Listic, build number 1 is Xeno, and they both start almost the same way, okay? They get early melee items. Early game on Venator, you're gonna build the melee build, okay? Most Venators get at least 2 points in the gut shot, and then they max ult and then max gut shot because it does such a ridiculous amount of damage, okay? And Listix is really fully focused on the entire melee playstyle. All his items here are close range, and he really wants to be in, and he really wants to hit melees over and over. In fact, he even builds Echo Shard in the late game so he can get the double melee off and Crushing Fist, okay? So this is a fully melee focused build. It works really, really well on ladder. The other way, you can build the exact same way early. Notice how the items are basically the same for the early laning stage. Melee items, right? And the skill order is close early, but then Xeno goes into consecrating nade max, okay? So if you wanna pivot later down the line, if you wanna pivot into nades, which also do a ridiculous amount of damage, this is where this build differentiates. He maxes nades before ultimate, and all the items that he buys after the melee items are focused around getting more nades, getting better nades, ballistic enhancement on the nades, you can't miss them, and he just makes everyone else burn, okay? So this is more of a hard carry build, and it has more items that will later down the line do a bit more gun damage. But Venator, really the way to play right now is melee, and then you go into gun / nades, or you build full melee, okay? So these 2 builds, depending on what you like, both super viable. Listic and Xeno. Next up, Victor, and I think this is gonna be the most controversial part of the video. Victor also hasn't been a super popular character on high rank in the last few patches. He changed quite drastically in the way he works. His aura does less damage, but they upped his pain battery damage and his pain battery range by a lot, and they gave Shocking Reanimation a ridiculously high value 1 point upgrade. So if you die and you have 1 point in the ultimate, you do 6 spirit damage per bullet plus your 15% fire rate. That doesn't sound like a lot until you realize that is literally like a 40 to 50% damage increase in lane. Like, it makes your gun deal way more damage, okay? Plus, they actually buffed the base gun damage. So what I've been running and what is working really well is a hybrid build. This looks like gun, but is really hybrid. You're going opening rounds against spirit power, and you're starting off the same way, getting an early spirit spike, but with quicksilver reload, right? So because we're gonna shoot our gun more in the lane, okay? And then we're gonna go into Berserk and monster rounds to farm. Berserk you can always keep active at max stacks on Victor, because it's really easy to get to 10 stacks. And then we're gonna go more into Spirit, and we're gonna put McGrill Magnum on Pain Battery. And at that point, you do crazy damage with your pain batteries, but also crazy damage with your gun. And it's really a 50-50 kind of damage situation, where now you can buy Leech instead of Infuser, and you will not die, ever, okay, at that point. If you get to this point with a decent soul lead or like even souls, once you get to Leech, you will not die if you play it properly. And the upside of this build compared to the Aura build again, Aura does less damage. And yeah, on Infuser / Full Spirit, you can run in and do the thing. But then you kind of, after you use Infuser, you blew your load and you're gonna be kind of weak for a bit. And you might end up dying / having to back out. This build, you are in at all times, you keep on shooting. And there's still spirit options in the late game if you want them, but pivoting more into gun late game got me more wins with this, which I think is the way to go forward with Victor. Vindicta, and here I recommend Turbo Absolute Vindicta, 95% win rate, top 10, yeah, okay, whatever. The build name is stupid, but the build is the classic. You go into Rapid Recharge, so you assassinate, do a lot of damage, and then you go Trophy Collector, because you really just want to keep on perma-fighting on Vindicta. It is a perma-fight meta anyways, you want to be in the fights, and then you go down Mystic Shot, Alchemical Fire for your gun spike, and you go more into Spirit. You can in the late game if you want to, which I've seen, pivot more into gun damage if you get a lot of snipe kills, right? Because on max you get more weapon damage, so you can buy something like Glass Cannon and Sharpshooter instead. But this is the best build I've found so far, mostly because most of the builds here are not updated / not very strong. Next up, Viscous, and here I'm gonna shout out Goober. Goober is like the go-to guy for Viscous, and this is like probably the perfect build for him. Viscous's punch does crazy amounts of damage now, plus his ball got buffed. And this build makes both of them combined into one. Okay, so we're getting early gun items, we're getting recharging rush again to get more punches, and then we're going Arcane Surge, so we can also use the ball to our advantage. And the skill order is literally Puddle Punch max and then Ult max. And both of those things work really well. You have everything here to make both of them work at the same time. And all the upgrades or the later game items help us use both of those more effectively, right? And that's really the way to play Viscous. He feels really, really strong right now. Give it a chance. Try out the punch build. It's the best of both worlds. It's a really, really solid hybrid build. Vyper, a lot of changes on paper, but she feels very similar. You go early Spirit Power because you know what happens in the lane, right? Like they die to Lethal Venom plus Ultimate, the combo, right? You can choose one, either Slowing Hex if you want to shut down the enemy, if they have like movement abilities to get away from you, or Bullet Shredder Resist. And then later down the line, after your green spike, you go into gun items and you do a lot more gun damage. That's Vyper. Next up, Warden. And here I'm gonna shout out my own build again. Hyper Carry Warden. This has been the go-to meta build for the last few patches. John is running something very similar. I know Cage got changed recently to where it does more now, and the one thing I did change about the build is I'm maxing Cage before willpower now. And on max level, you can catch people off guard and actually kill them quite reliably with slowing bullets plus the binding word silence, okay? And that's really all that changed. Other than that, the itemization didn't change much, other than us running weighted shots now, because that item got buffed and it builds out of slowing bullets, and getting a later Mythic expansion just for the value to have easier Cage catches, and otherwise you pivot into the late game gun carry build. Ooh, Wraith! My most played character overall, and my most played character this patch for good reason. She's insanely strong right now, and this is the new thing for Wraith. And on first glance, it seems pretty normal early, right? You get your Spirit spike. Compressed cooldown is really strong now, because the one downside that cards have now compared to the old cards is, even on max level, you get them very slowly. And that's why we're running Recharging Rush. Again, this item got fixed, it works on Wraith cards now, so think of this as like another 200 to 250 damage extra in the fight, because you're gonna proc this every time, you're gonna shoot your gun anyways, so you're gonna have an extra card. And notice how this build does not have Tesla. So in this build, we sit on the side lane, and if we see anyone, we kill them. At that point, at 10k, you can 1v1 anyone in the game. Wraith is back to being the 1v1 monster she was. Spirit Shredder Bullets is actually crazy now, because it just gives us a free 12% lifesteal, plus it shreds them even harder. So this is like a one-shot, and then the classic Dispel Magic to get out of any situation for free. And then we're going into a later game Ricochet. This item allows you, it is a must buy, it allows you to get infinite amounts of cards in team fights because you can hit multiple people, right? Otherwise, it is the classic Wraith. You can still go whatever you need here. You can go Mercurial Magnum, Boutless if you need more damage. In practice, at this point, I have enough damage and all I worry about is survivability. Usually I buy like Spirit Resilience or Spellbreaker. And last but not least, Yamato. And again, together as built, she's back to being like a spirit tank slash one-shot type of character. Power Slash got buffed, it has a lot of range now, it's easier to catch people. As per usual, Mystic Shot in lane to get harassed, and then an early Torment Pulse, and then Silence Wave. Again, you see this item, and you will see this item a lot more in the next few weeks, once people figure out how strong it is. This is the best build for Yamato together. And that is it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Let me know if there's any builds you think I've missed that are really good. Again, meta is still in early development. I do think Most of the builds I mentioned here will be meta for a long time. They are really at the forefront of innovation, and I hope that was somewhat useful. Until next time, see you friends, bye bye.